So let's start. Why not you give me a brief of introduction about yourself?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So my name is Andrei Reznikov. Right now, I'm working as a systems engineering manager at EPAM Systems. And through my career, I was always focusing on the projects related to the DevOps and cloud. So I have the significant experience with the different types of public clouds, including Microsoft Azure and AWS services. I have been working with the different types of DevOps practices like continuous integration, infrastructure as a code, configuration management, application performance management. And the last 5 years of my career, I'm mostly working on the managerial positions. On those positions, I was leading the teams who was delivering the different types of projects, but all of these projects were related to modern cloud and DevOps technologies. I try to keep my focus on this and develop my technical competencies as well as my managerial skills.
Yeah.
Uh, I think
Yeah.
that's it very
Yeah,
briefly.
Pajit, thank you so much for giving me a brief of introduction about yourself. So what I will do is I'll kick in with the set of questions based on the resume, and probably I will leave the feedback at the end of the call once we have finished and gone through all of your responses. Probably I can see, what and all the areas that probably you might need to refine a bit, probably when you sound your response back to me. So the first question, because a lot of things that caught my eye from your resume, and it was really great to see your resume because a lot of things, it sounded to be a pretty good one uh, from the initial review, and there are a couple of questions which I'm also curious to know from you, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with the first question because I see most of your um, experience lies in DevOps. So let's start with DevOps. We'll move on to cloud. We'll test a couple of your microservices or Kubernetes expertise in. So the first question that I have is, can you explain me the concept of site reliability engineering SRE and how does it differ from traditional DevOps? How have you implemented or guided SRE practices for your team, or you have done it yourself in the current or the previous roles?
Okay, so let me start from the site reliability engineering. So this concept was introduced several years ago by Google, and they explained this concept as building the reliable environments where our application and services can operate efficiently and reliably. And in order to enhance this, the Google proposed to use some systems engineering and software engineering practices to enhance the operations part of your software. This not only includes the usage of some platform capabilities and host of the hosting of your applications, but also the development of some specific tools that can help you to monitor the operation part of your application. For example, as a classic example, I can give you I can tell you about the usage of uh, application performance management tools that allow you in a real time monitor what is happening with your application and what process are going inside. This online monitoring tool is in order to use this, you need to embed some libraries and some methods in your code, and it will make the real-time feedback with some platforms uh, like New Relic, for example. And in those tools, or Dynatrace, and in those tools, you can in real time get some events happening in your application. Another part is related to the availability of your application. So you need to make sure that your applications and infrastructures are highly available, and you need to add more resilience into resilient solutions into your infrastructure. For example, we can talk about usage of the load balancers, some backup infrastructure that can be provisioned quickly in case of failure of your main applications of the primary part of your application and infrastructure.
Yeah. And I think I would like to know the difference. I mean, it's a great explanation over SRE, but I would like to know a very brief difference between SRE versus DevOps. And especially in SRE stuff, anything in your DevOps pipelines that you have embedded this SRE for any applications in general, or you can start with a use case that you have it in your mind. Yeah.
Let me talk about the difference first. The DevOps works more like a concept. For example, it explains how you need to deploy and deliver your applications and your applications and your infrastructure. And SRE is a practical application of this concept. This is the set of practical techniques that you can apply to your application and into your infrastructure. So as I already mentioned, the monitoring, we can talk, for example, about the other parts. For example, the automation infrastructure as a code can be also used as a part of the SRE. For example, you don't need to think about the some solid backup strategy or keep the multiple duplicates of your infrastructure. If with the automation provisioning, you can get back the whole infrastructure like in a minutes.
Yeah. I think that sounds good. Moving on to the next one. For example, if you feel any question is probably not comfortable for you, you can skip through that question and I can go to the next one. Yeah. So my next question would be, is that okay, Andre?
Yeah, I would like to answer this question as best as I could, and then you can just write down your feedback. So it will be even better if these questions will be uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So the next question would be, can you explain me the concept of immutable infrastructure and how it contrasts with mutable infrastructure? Have you implemented anything like that in your previous or current role?
I think yes. So as I remember, the immutable infrastructure is the concept when you describe your infrastructure without some hard coding or without some relation to the particular platform or place where this infrastructure will be hosted. For example, as a good example, it can be some Docker containers that can be hosted on a Kubernetes cluster, or it can be hosted at any major cloud provider services.
Okay. So moving on to the next question, it would be more on the cloud. Okay. So tell me a time where you had to design and implement a multi-cloud strategy. What are the key challenges and how did you address them?
To be honest, I don't have much experience with the multi-cloud solution, but if I would guess what challenges I might have, the first challenge I would say would be the connectivity, because if I would have the different parts of my infrastructure that need to work together, I need to think about the way how it can be connected. It might be some site-to-site VPN. It might be some enterprise level solutions when like some of the data centers between the providers can be connected directly, or there might be some on-premise data center for organization that will be the connection point for this. But I need to keep in mind that the delays between the network connectivity might be significant.
Yeah. And apart from networking, can you think of anything else? Could be a challenge.
Okay, so if we're talking about the provisioning, the tools like Terraform are actually multi-cloud. So we can make some implicit dependencies inside. So there should be not so big issue in order how I'm going to provision this. But maybe some questions related to the authentication might appear, because if we live if our identity solution is Active Directory, that will be pretty easy to integrate it, for example, with Azure. But talking about the Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, or AWS, there might be some troubles by connecting those services together and make the unified forest for our domain.
Yeah. Anything else you could think of?
Probably not right now.
Okay. So let's move on. I think pretty much automation and authentication, all of that are good points, but I was expecting a little bit more. That's okay. We'll move on to the next question. So can you explain me the concept of chaos engineering and how it can be used to improve the system resiliency? Have you implemented chaos engineering practices in your current or previous role?
I think you're talking about the chaos monkeys concept, right?
Yeah.
So this is the concept that that allows us to test the resilience of our infrastructure. So according to this concept, we need to randomly select the part of the infrastructure that would be unexpectedly unavailable, and we need to test how our high availability solution will react on this. Which part of the application or infrastructure will be unavailable, will be affected, and what damage it can potentially cause to our infrastructure. So I don't have the experience of implementing this, but if I would do this, first I would probably think about I would make the list of the most critical part of my infrastructure. For example, it might be the single points of failure, the connectivity to the cloud and some management interfaces, some load balancers and DNS that might be most vulnerable, and then using my UAT and test environments, I will try to cause some intentional damage to this system, disable them, and then I will measure the availability, the performance, and I will try to see how our system will react on this damage.
Okay. So let's move on to the other one. How do you ensure compliance with industry standards and regulation in your DevOps practices? Because I have seen an interesting point in your resume about DORA. I would like to know, or probably give me an example of DORA or anything else that you have been, having in mind on how you have implemented that compliance measure in your projects. Like, where did you start and how did it go? Like, any lessons learned?
Okay, so so if we're talking in general about the compliance, this is actually a big topic for all organizations. So it depends on the scale of organization and the challenges and the industry that we have. For example, if we're talking about some healthcare or financial industry, the compliance is playing the very important part, because like the risk of not being compliant is pretty high, and it may really affect the operations of the whole organization. So there are some centralized solutions like Decision Focus or Azure Sentinel, as I remember, that allows us to automate the compliance management. So those tools have access to your infrastructure. They scan all the data that you have in your organization, and it provides some reports about the state of your data. For example, if you have some personal information, peer information, then you need to apply special rules how this peer information should be processed, should be stored, archived, and obviously deleted as soon as you don't need this information anymore. So if we're talking about the organizations that are not ready to go to the enterprise level solutions, then we may think about some simplified approach to this. For example,
can you, when you are framing your answer, can you stay in line with the DORA compliance that, that's what mentioned in your resume? Because that's what caught my eye. And I would like to know more in the sense where how it started, why does your organization needs DORA? I mean, start with why it is needed, okay? How it started, what are the challenges and lesson learned? Just go brief in these pillars. I think that would do.
Okay. So the DORA is a new compliance that was published last year by EU regulator that demands that provides some special requirements to the resilience of the organizations who are providing some financial services on the EU market, or the organizations that are critical providers to the financial institutions of EU. So because of that, one of my client need to become the DORA compliant, and that's why I was invited to join this project to help them to do this. So the first thing that I started to do, I started to review the DORA compliance regulations itself together with the legal team, and try to apply those requirements into the real IT infrastructure, and identify what particular steps can prove and what particular artifacts, procedures, processes within the organization can prove that we are not DORA compliant or DORA compliant. And in order to achieve this, we perform the gap analysis, and from this gap analysis, we identified the scope that needs to be implemented for the organization. So I didn't stay with this project for the whole duration, but I left it when the scope was fully defined and the clear instructions were provided to all of the departments and to all of the teams that are potentially involved. So the main thing that I learned from this project that the compliance requirements at the first glance, they don't bring any real value to the products and services that you provide to the customer. But if you analyze them attentively, you may try to think how you can transform these requirements on your own benefit.
So any specific challenges that you have faced during the scoping? Because you need to work with multiple teams down the lane, and there might be some sort of challenges that might, trigger in terms of adoption or in terms of, kind of to do or challenge, or people might have challenged you that no, this is not the way that we should do, or this is not something that our applications were designed to work, etc., etc. Any such, like maybe not all, but probably one or two, the major ones that you can think of.
The first challenge that I have was the definition of the availability for the enterprise applications, because of their complexity, it would very hard to identify what is really what does it mean, the availability of the application, because it have the multiple functions, multiple features, so it's really hard to identify. So I have to work much with the product managers in order to understand this. And the second challenge that I would probably name is to map the compliance requirements into some actions that we need to perform, because the compliance is written on in a very specific language that might be not suitable for what you currently have. So you need to think attentively how you can interpret each word and how it can be mapped to your applications and infrastructure.
Great. I think that's a good explanation, because not many of the people get to work with those sort of requirements on day to day. And I just want to take this opportunity to ensure that people listening to that recording will get to know some insights of, or from your experience or whatever. Yeah. And then moving on to the next one, what strategies that you use to optimize the cost for running workloads, if at all, like, anything, just go with any of the cloud that you're comfortable at, and tell me some of the examples of cost saving measures that you have implemented. Because I have seen, a little bit of information in your resume along the similar lines, and the number was really huge. 70K per month you just saved in one of the projects. So I just want to know, what is it, what strategy that you have implemented to cut down that much of cost? Where did it started? How did you identify it? All of that. So start with the introduction of the project, and then how did you identify, and then what strategies did you use, and what's the end result?
Yeah, sure. So starting from those cut of the cost from 70K to 0, it was pretty straightforward actually, because the organization was used a service called Box for the file sharing. At the same time, they have the license for Office 365, including OneDrive, for all of their employees. So it was quite obvious that in order to optimize the cost, you need to migrate all of your data from the Box service to OneDrive and cancel the subscription. So this was one of my example, but going to more general example of the cost optimization, I would like to talk a bit about the practice that is called FinOps in a cloud. So there are several things that you can do in order to optimize your cost. So the first and the main thing that you need to do is to understand the structure of your expenses. In order to do this, I used to apply the tags to all of the elements of the infrastructure and to classify them into the specific groups. For example, classify them for the different services or the different products that is used that are using our cloud services. This allows you to have the clear vision where you have the most expenses and where you have to put most of your attention. From the other hand, there is also a tool called Advisor in Azure that allows you always propose you some solutions that could be used to optimize the cost. It's pretty straightforward. It gives you the very direct recommendations. So I would also recommend to use this. And there are also some advanced techniques that you can apply to your infrastructure. For example, you may think about start-stop policy for your virtual machines. You can think about the optimization of non-production environments that you have. And you also may use about some data management solution that allows you to archive your data, to use the more cheap storages for the data that you don't need to use daily. So all of this is a combination of practices and techniques that will allow you to save the money.
Yeah, I think that's a great explanation. I think I was pretty impressed with the answer that you gave me for this question, frankly. Moving on to the next one, can you discuss your experience with disaster recovery and business continuity planning in cloud? What are the key considerations and the best practices for ensuring resilience? Because I have noticed that you are being part of a couple of migrations, and probably you can take up those examples or use case that would also do. But tell me what are the key considerations? What are the best practices that you have adapt? And what is the lessons learned out of that, disaster recovery on BCDR planning? Think of any use case, any application, I don't mind. Just tell me these pillars, yeah.
Okay, so the first concept that you need to think about the high availability and disaster recovery is redundancy. So you need to have some extra copy of your data that could be available in case of failure. I know that most of the storages provided, for example, by Microsoft Cloud, promises that your data is duplicated on Microsoft side, which is great and which is really good. But it's also nice to have some of your data, especially the critical data, migrated out of the cloud or to different regions where you can be sure that your data is always safe and accessible in case of failure. So talking about the disaster recovery, and
because I have seen, a couple of projects where you have mentioned that you're part of the migrations. What I'm curious to listen is that what is the project, that was planning for BCDR? Just give me on a high level what's that application or the project is, and what sort of best practices that you have adapted in designing it, and what are the challenges or the lessons learned? Because I wanted to know, the use case that you're bringing to the table, not BCDR in general. Yeah.
Okay. It's hard to remember. To be honest with you, I need to think a bit more about this.
Okay.
About the disaster recovery. So let's probably skip this one. Yeah, I need to prepare a good case for this.
Okay, that's fine. Let's move on. So probably I would like to probe a bit of questions on microservices. So tell me your experience with microservices. How do you handle service discovery, load balancing, fault tolerance in microservice environment? Think of any product in cloud or in on-prem, I don't mind. So take it EKS or AKS or OCP, doesn't matter. Tell me any specific project that you had the experience, and how did you handle all these other aspects like load balancing, service discovery, and fault tolerance? What are the challenges and the lessons learned?
I had the project where we were designing when we were performing the migration from old classic architecture to the microservice design. So we decided to go with the best possible microservice platform, which is serverless, because in my opinion, that do not have any microservice platform that you need to maintain and manage is a great advantage, because it takes a lot of team's effort and it might be pretty complicated. So the main challenge that we have is the redesigning of the application itself, because when you're working with the microservices, you have the limited number of resources, especially memory, then that you can use for the in-memory calculation. That means that you can process only limited number of the data in time. So the trouble was, if you need to do more, you have to offload some data to the fast storages in your cloud. So the connection between the collaboration between those fast storages and the microservice applications was the main challenge for us. So we have to do a
So
lot of
prior
work.
to designing this, your application was not really stateless, and
Yeah.
you have already hosted on Kubernetes, and you started making them, you know,
No,
kind of.
no, we have like old classic monolith application that used like that was just the three-layer application, front end, back end, and the database layer. So we have to work mostly on the part related to the back end, because it was the risk modeling application for the insurance company, and the challenge was that we have to make a lot of insurance math in order to model our risks. So it required from us the major redesign, because you cannot just take the old application and put in the serverless. It will be quickly out of memory, out of resources, and the performance would be horrible. So you have to make the right split into the functions, and put those functions in the logical groups where they can cooperate together.
Yeah. So any specific challenges in space? I mean, like what I'm interested to know is your application is fine. You had a lengthy or such a sort of monolith application where you had trouble, kind of diversifying your application logic versus the file share logic or whatever. Apart from that, any specific thing in Kubernetes which was a challenge for hosting the app? If you have not encountered it, that's fine. But I just wanted to understand, any challenges that you could think of microservice environment, because everyone now is going to microservices, right? There
Yeah.
are a lot of pros and cons coming with microservices too. So I just wanted to know how did you experience the other side of the coin and really think that microservices is not right in couple of aspects. And you have seen that from the practical experience in a project or application or whatever. So I just wanted to hear those thoughts. When did you feel, or did you ever felt? If you felt, what are those? Yeah.
It's hard. Actually, it's hard to say, because honestly, like, I believe that they were designed really well, so we don't have much troubles with this. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But
that's fine.
yeah, it's a good point to think about this, what the challenges might be in this case. So yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for showing this up to me.
Yeah, no problem. So let's move on to the next question. So my next question would be, for example, this is a use case. You can use all your curiosity to, like creativity, whatever you say, imagination or whatever to answer the question. So this could not be a direct, because I don't see anything in resume that was mentioned of multi-region deployments or whatever, but I just want to probe and understand your insights around this area. So the question is, you are tasked with I've been told, or you've been told to design a multi-region deployment for your shopping application. And that shopping application needs to have high availability and low latency as much as it can for the users worldwide. Describe the steps that you would like to take for designing that application in Azure or any other cloud that you're comfortable at. So tell me, how did you strategize the application design in any cloud that you're comfortable. So don't need to go into all the services because designing an application is huge. There's a lot of components.
Yeah.
But as it is a shopping website, what comes into your mind at the very first place in sort of the architecture point of view? Don't
Okay.
need to go to depth, but touch base me all that pillars of aspect that you could think of. Yeah.
Yeah, so the main thing that comes in my head is that we need to understand from what regions and what countries we would have our customers. So if we have our customers from Australia, for example, it makes a lot of sense for me to think about the hosting of our application somewhere in some closer locations, like Australia itself, or it may be some Asia region, but not definitely in the Europe, because of the latency. It would make a lot of troubles for the customers to wait until everything will be processed. Another thing is that comes in my mind is the strategy about the storing of some of the customers' data, because in US, in Europe, and Australia there may be the different regulations. We need to think about this definitely,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to some sensitive information, for example, like the credit
Yeah.
card numbers that will be used for regular payments.
Yeah.
So like usually some services like Azure DNS Traffic Manager is used to route our customers to the right location in order to process their request. So this is the main concern. Maybe another one would relate it to the data transfer, because if we need to sync our data across the multiple regions, we need to take care. We need to think about the speed of the data transfer. Usually between one cloud provider and data centers, it's pretty fast, but we need to check and make sure that it will satisfy our requirements. Another aspect of this is the cost of the data transfer, because I know that between the multiple regions, it might be not free, and we need to evaluate how much we may spend per month for this.
Okay, that's it. Anything else you could think of?
Anything else? I don't know. Maybe there are some. If we talking about some e-commerce solutions online, there might be some tricky part related to the products that we're selling itself, because the set of the products that are available for each of the region might be the different. And you see, like for each of the region, we might have the different front end, the different product catalog, the different payment platforms. We might have the different postage services that will deliver this product if it's some online shopping like Amazon. So all of these need to take in the consideration. So this is like the multi-layer solution, and for each of the country, it would be the unique subset of those services.
Okay. I think I was convinced for a part of the answer, but yeah, I expected a bit more. Yeah, let's move on to the next question. So I will leave my feedback at the end.
Okay.
So the next question would be, let's go on DevOps. So this is also another use case. You are part of a company, product-based company, and a customer came to you and asked that I wanted to implement a CI/CD pipeline for one of my application hosted on Azure or AWS or anything. And let's think that for now, they are using AWS. So they said that we are using AWS code pipeline for version control and build automation. Describe the steps that you would take to set up the security measures for the CI/CD pipeline. If you're not comfortable with AWS code pipeline, take Azure DevOps or GitHub. I don't mind. But tell me if your client comes and tell you what are the security. I don't know anything. I just want you to guide me through the security practices which I need to adopt in my CI/CD pipelines. Don't go into the details. Just touch
Yeah.
base me with all the pillars that you could think of.
Okay, so I think it's pretty cloud agnostic. So first thing that we need to do is we need to think about the storage of our secrets. It might be the passwords, the API keys, and the certificates that is used for our application. Another part is might be some static code analysis tools that is used to analyze the code and make sure that some security best practices are applied to all of our parts of the code. Another thing might be it calls some dust tools, dynamic SAST and dust tools that can be embedded into our pipelines. And according to the modern concepts like shift left, we need to apply this test as early as possible. Not on the staging environment or production environment, we need to test our solution as early as possible on the dev or on the QA environments in order to make sure that we are security compliant. So this is what quickly come to my mind.
What else you could think of? Can you think of any? Maybe I can drop some hints. Anything on, if, for example, if anyone working on Docker images, they would like to certainly restrict anything from open source. Anything that you could think of?
That's a good question. So this relates. So the first thing that comes to my mind is the usage of some container image registry
or any binaries because when you are compiling your application, there's a lot of binaries that you need to download. But maybe people just put up any sort of untrusted open source entities into the code, which is not a best practice, right? So how do you ensure that you restrict them? Of course, in static or Dash, you will get it, but is there anything that you could, probably do prior to the SAST or DAST analysis? Because you have a lot of tools in SAST and DAST, and not every tool captures that. So anything that you could think of to restrict the untrusted usage?
To be honest, I know what you want to hear from me, but I don't know the answer. I don't know how to embed this check into the CI/CD.
That's fine. So let's move on. I think this is the last question that I have for today. The question was, you're been asked to set up a scalable and a secure architecture, or like a network architecture or a networking setup for a cloud project. Take any cloud, Azure, AWS, which you're comfortable at. What are the aspects that you have in mind to ensure your network is secure, scalable, and high available?
Okay, so if we're talking about the security,
take any cloud, cloud, Azure or AWS, tell me what are all the services that comes to your mind, because I know when you tell me about that service that you are, and you know about the service, and you are putting into the, architecture, meaning to say that there is some sort of use case or stuff that's going to embed with it. So I just want to hear those lines. Start with services. Start with a list of services.
So when we talk about, let's take an Azure as the simplest example. So the first is the restriction of the traffic using some application security groups and network security groups. Make sure that we are not allowing we're not allowing their services and ports that are not required, especially some sensitives like TCP/22 for SSH connection And if we allow in this, we need to make sure that it's allowed only from the trusted locations, like the external API of the office, or as it was done like for my previous customer, only the countries where the offices are located are allowed to connect to the network. So the wide range of IPs, but the limited number of countries. So
Anything apart from NSGs?
Sorry?
Anything apart from NSGs?
So yes, definitely it's the firewall that can be used. So in order to publish our applications to internet, we need to think about using some services like application gateway as a secure and reliable solution, creation of DMZ zones that allow us to increase the security and make sure that we're not exposed the part of the infrastructure to the to internet. What else? There are probably some network watchers that also can help us, some specific security solutions with the cloud, but I honestly I don't remember their names and how they work.
Okay, no problem. I think that comes to an end of the mock interview. I think you have really done well in a couple of the questions, and the answers that I have received was really good in a couple of them. But you are struggling some of the areas where I would like to go by question and kind of tell you what are those, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with the first question, which is all about SRE and DevOps. The explanation of SRE was great, and the difference. You started with talking SRE a lot, and lately realized that I was asking the question of, can you tell me the differentiation between both? Right. So you would have your answer should be very crisp in telling me the difference first and talking about the SRE later, because the second extended question is, how do you implement SRE practices? You've talked about monitoring, you've talked about reliability, all that, which is good. But the first part of question, you're kind of not in the track. You kind of went out track a bit. So what I felt is you would have briefed about the difference and then stayed intact with the SRE explanation. But that's all about the structuring and sounding. You can try to improve that probably in the upcoming interviews that you have, or anything in your preparation. And the second question is all about immutable and mutable infrastructure. I think you've talked about automation and Terraform a bit. And you missed to answer, how did you implement those? The only aspect that I've heard is automation and nothing else, where I was thinking you would have given me a bit of more options in that space. But I'm satisfied with the answer. That's what I can say. And moving on to the multi-cloud strategy, I think you've passed that question because you've said you're not comfortable at the key challenges of multi-cloud. That's fine. We can skip that. BCDR, I think you've skipped that. You kind of given me an example on a very basic level where I was expecting a little bit more. And FinOps was great. I really love the explanation of FinOps, where you've gone to multiple stuff. You've talked about FinOps, you've talked about Azure Advisor, you've talked about the strategies to save the cost by the saving plans or whatever. So that was vague. I really like the answer. Chaos engineering, I think explanation was decent, but I've expected a little bit more. But that's good. I can accept that answer. And I've talked about industry standards. Even in this question, I felt that you went a bit off track, because the way that I sounded to you is to give me a bit more information on DORA, which is there in your resume. But the first few lines were like off track, where I need to pitch in and tell you, okay, tell me about Dora. And I think after that you were okay. It's just that initially you just went off track. And then with microservices architecture, I was looking at the fault tolerance and service discovery, load balancing aspects. This one also you went bit of off track talking about the application challenges and all of that, which is kind of a little bit not relevant to the question that I have asked.
Yeah.
And the another question is all about I think CI/CD pipeline. I think I've asked you about what are the security practices for CI/CD pipelines. I think that was good. You have touched based on secret management. You've touched based on um, what else? I think 2 to 3 options that you have described, which is decent. One more thing that you have missed is blocking the untrusted sources is what being missed. Other than that, I think the answer was pretty decent. I am good with that. The other question is around the network architecture. I think you've talked about NSGs, you've talked about firewalls. In the previous conversations you talked about VPN. I think you were very constrained in not going broad because you're juggling towards 2 to 3 services, which you could even broaden it by talking about vWAN or transient architectures. You would have talked about route tables. You would have talked about DDoS protection. You would have talked about separating DMZ versus your sensitive workloads. There are a lot of other aspects which you could probably add on, because when network is vague, right? And so at least a decent amount of service, like 4 to 5 on a very high level, were important, because you have a concept of transitive pairing, non-transitive pairing, and when you are bringing multi-cloud architecture or a scalable architecture, you should have that transitive networking established, and which you would have brought up vWAN, you would have brought up route server, a lot of other services which I could think of, you would have brought it in, but you were very constrained. So I would not give a fully okay or acceptance to that answer. But yeah, I think in the areas that you're comfortable at, you sounded pretty good. Sometimes you went a bit off track. So I think try to change that thing. And if you feel like that happens in any sort of interviews, right, where people would have got nervous or didn't listen the question. So if you didn't listen the question, it's totally okay to say back to the interview that can you repeat your question, so that or take a pause to analyze what the question was, because the way that I question to you is an extensible question, which is a question and based out of there's an extension to it. So the way that I expect the response is also you answer the first question and then you move on to the extended question. Don't just jump in or regularize the structure. And in a lot of places, I need to tell you how to follow the structure. So tell me the project, tell me what it is, how it is. So actually, the candidate should have to, follow that to ensure his response is quite structured and well received. But I need to put in some additional hints to do it, which is what you need to improve on overall. And there are a couple of areas I think on BCDR, on microservices, you should probably lean in a bit more in terms of your preparation. But overall, it sounded okay. But there's always a room for improvement. I think you are going to correct in these areas to go from that okay to great.
To great. Yeah, I'm really grateful to you for your time, actually, because so this interview was absolutely amazing for me, because you helped me first. You helped me like to reuse some of my knowledge, and I clearly see some gaps in my answers. And sometimes, I need to spend some time to learn a bit more some of the things, because for example, like the control of the open source binaries. I never thought about this. Like I never worked with this, so I need to just spend some time learning how to do this. And very important thing about the structure of the answers. Yeah, I understand that I need to prepare some template for myself and try to follow this template every time I give the answer. So
Yeah, because if it
maybe
is for a junior level roles, that would have been acceptable. But when you go into
yeah,
that senior roles or
yeah.
managerial roles, they intend that you're already mature enough to answer better in the structure or going in track.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely.
correct those things a bit. I think you should be okay. Take a pause.
Um,
Always take a pause in
yeah,
answering. Don't
yeah.
don't just jump in. Yeah.
Can you recommend me again some good structure of the answer that I can give? Because I think that's where I need to work a lot. Maybe I know, take a pause, clarify the question, then
Take a pause, clarify a question. Whenever it's a use case question, think of the project. Tell the project, like introduction of the project. What have you done? What are the challenges? Lesson learned. Usually, challenges are the lesson learned, and introduction are three key pillars for use case. And
okay.
yeah, and like in senior, experienced people or more than that, what's more important or what's more assessed is not the ground knowledge, is the use case and the challenges. And then what are the lessons learned out of it? They wanted to
Okay.
assess the way that you have approached the problem and how did you solve the problem. For junior level roles, it's all about understanding the technology,
Yeah.
what is the services and all of it. You're getting there. I'm trying to give you the difference between how people look at when they interview a junior guy versus senior
Yeah.
guy. And the way that
Definitely.
I structured today's questions is all about, up to your extent, up to your experience. I didn't
Yeah.
cross even less or more. I wanted to keep it exact at the same point to ensure or measure you at the right gauge.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Thank you. I think I need to I need to work on this structure. Yeah. So this is, I think, a good advice. Yeah. Especially the lessons learned, because you need to give the very well prepared outcome from your experience that
Yeah,
allow you to be efficient in the future and prove that you learn from your experience and from your
correct.
mistakes, especially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And people always look for the value that you bring into the table.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what make people curious about you, right? So always
Mm,
maintain that curiosity in the answer so that people remember you for it. Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
think overall it was good talking to you, Andre. I really loved the conversation that we had today. I think hopefully, we are going to keep push your recording to our channel. I think thanks a lot for your time. I hope the sort of pathway that I've given in terms of your interview preparation. Yeah, I think that's all for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Have a great day. Bye bye.